Nothing's working. So then you ask, well, if we're doing all of this to try to improve our schools, shouldn't we be seeing something?
Our education system is plagued by systemic issues. Many problems have been made apparent during the coronavirus pandemic, from the inflexibility of many schools' curriculums to the injustice for students who lack the same technology as their wealthier peers. These problems, however, are not new. They've just been painfully exposed. Although the US spends a lot of money on K-12 education, we rank substantially lower on international tests than comparable OECD countries. Simply throwing more money at the cake isn't going to fix it. It'll just add fuel to the fire. So, what can be done about it? How should the incoming president and Congress improve public education?
To solve a problem, we need to figure out the root cause. Why is the education system struggling? A lot of it is because of a trend called the achievement gap, the disparity in educational attainment and performance between students of differing socioeconomic statuses, even within a school district, often correlating with race. Not only are low-income students less proficient across various subjects, particularly reading and math, but they are also substantially less likely to graduate high school and even go on and finish college. Impoverished students also face greater hardships outside of school, from a larger burden to care for their families to food insecurity. We spoke with Talia Rosen, the Education Legislative Assistant for Congresswoman Gwen Moore, to learn more about the importance of food security for education.
Every children should have access to free meals, healthy meals, and quality meals. And this is something that we've seen is so detrimental to the brain development, but also there's so much social stigma around it.
So, a problem that seems distinct to education actually has a very real influence on it. However, inequity can always be tackled by a state independently. Some states are wealthier than others, so independent state action can't level the national playing field. Compare a wealthier state like Massachusetts to a less wealthy state like Mississippi. It falls on the federal government to make up for these differences.
Hold on. Isn't education reserved to state and local governments under the 10th Amendment? How is the federal government allowed to legislate on education?
Some people believe that education should be led to subsidiary governments.
States need to be free to address the particular problems and possibilities of their people.
This is called devolution, the returning of power from the federal to the state level.
Oh, I see. The federal government did a pretty poor job of this cake, so it might be better to break it up to the states, like into cake pops.
But this doesn't unburn the cake. The underlying structure of the system has not changed. Clearly, widespread fundamental change is the secret ingredient to fixing the American education system.
This isn't working.
Although education isn't enumerated in the Constitution to the federal government, the Equal Protections Clause of the 14th Amendment gave the federal government the right to intervene in educational matters. This was demonstrated in the Supreme Court case of Brown v. Board of Education, in which the Supreme Court ruled that the Equal Protections Clause allowed the federal government to force school districts across the country to desegregate. Therefore, the federal government can intervene to ensure equality between students.
Well, that just brings us back to our original question. How should the incoming president and Congress fix education?
Well, to start off, not all federal legislation on education has been successful. For example, No Child Left Behind sought to close the achievement gap we looked at earlier, but in practice, its focus on standardized test scores ended up inhibiting school districts' ability to choose what was best for their students.
For the unintended negative consequences that have arisen from mandated annual testing and its high-stake uses have proven testing not only to be an ineffective tool, but a destructive one as well.
Another commonly supported solution to America's education problem is the funding of charter schools, which we learned more about when we spoke with our state senator, Alberta Darling.
We believe that a child and their parents should be able to choose the best schools, and the neighborhood should not be the determining factor.
Charter schools can increase the educational outcomes of students, but often at the cost of creating highly segregated schools. When we asked Talia Rosen about charter schools, she explained that
Many schools popped up as a way for parents to continue to segregate their children from Black children.
To quantify, Black students in charter schools are twice as segregated as Black students in public schools. That being said, charter schools in urban areas have also been reported to create test score gains equivalent to the Black-white achievement gap.
Therefore, charters can be an effective way to deal with problems in our educational system, but they can also exacerbate existing problems, depending on how they're run or implemented.
Okay, so we've looked at some things that have failed and some things that might work. What about President-elect Biden? What are his proposals?
One of Biden's plans regarding education is to triple funding to Title I, thus increasing the amount of money given to low-income schools to $45 billion. Another focus of his administration is continuing the desegregation of schools. As Cynthia mentioned earlier when we were talking about charter schools, a key part of this is continuing to support public schools.
Both of these goals tackle important weaknesses in the country's education system, but it's important to remember that no one action can fix everything.
I see. Despite its flaws, the United States education system is not a lost cause. With the right ingredients combined correctly and cooked just right, we can give American students the cake they deserve.
Do a nice healthy dose. There you go.
Oh God.
That's good.
Okay. Yeah.
You tell me when you're ready. Filming?
Yes.
I don't like that stuff. I mean, it's going, but it's not going much.